Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. The ongoing war in Amazonia that started from a genuine fight for freedom unfortunately has given a lot of different groups with ill intentions the excuse and an open ground to do as they please at the detriment of the poor civilians. It is unfortunate, but oftentimes the consolation is this set of people get what they deserve. Meanwhile, a colonial La Republic du Cameroon governor who said just a few days ago that there was a return to peace and normalcy, that is why senatorial elections went on well, called on the youth a few days ago after saying that to work to bring back peace. The irony that goes with lie becomes so obvious with time, and it is a sad thing that La Republic du Cameroon's government and administration would rather choose to lie in the face of its citizens and the entire world than allow the peoples of Amazonia the freedom that they deserve. We have quite a handful of reports on Undaunted tonight, and to go with that, our special guest from the interim government who will be reacting to a few reports. But for now, let's have the prime headlines usher us into the news of tonight.
All right, here are the news headlines for today. Colonial La Republic du Cameroon Governor Lily Afrique talks on bringing back peace in the northern zone. From somewhere, Moja Moja reappears again. What is he up to this time? Well, we'll find out in the news. Four suspected arrested after attacks on transport buses in La Republic du Cameroon Douala Yaoundé Road. Also today, Nigerians masses choose to address INEC's involvement in the upcoming elections. La Republic du Cameroon's consulate to Nigeria urges Southern Cameroonians living in Nigeria to stop using Lagos as a trans-Europe. Young Ambazonian engineer Awablaze designs open bridge in yet another mind-blowing invention. Now let's get the news in detail.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, The people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amber News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Amazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Ambazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Amazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambertv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
A colonial Republic of Cameroon governor who said just 2 days ago that there was a return to peace and normalcy. That's why senatorial elections went on well, called on the youth 2 days after to work to bring back peace. Bringing it back from where is the question we're asking today. Which peace is he talking again? Why say there is peace when there is actually none? The Colonial Republic of Cameroon's National Youth Council (CNYC), a branch of the YCPDM, has disclosed that drug consumption and peace are two vital points in their 3-year plan of action that is to be implemented in the northern zone of Amazonia. Well, this is where we will begin the full brief face off on tonight. I am Onyi Obalag. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, very well, Onyi. Good evening, Amazonians. This statement was made known during the installation ceremony of the Colonial Republic of Cameroon Bureau of CNYC YCPDM for the Northern Zone by the Colonial Republic of Cameroon Governor Adolphe Lele Lafrique in the presence of the Colonial Republic of Cameroon's slash YDM, Fadimatu Usmanu, and the Colonial Republic of Cameroon Delegate of Youth Affairs and Civic Education. Quote from Fadimatu says, "We have to sensitize them to stay away from drugs and alcohol consumption in schools, which is something that is becoming rampant. Also, they have to stay away from violence and be ambassadors of peace. We already started to reduce the issue of drug consumption amongst youth. We sent some youths to different schools and quarters to sensitize them on drug abuse, gender-based violence, and many others. The sensitization was effective. At least most of the youths now know they have a civic responsibility. We have to continue with the sensitization, and hopefully our goals will be met." This one was from Malcolm Samuel.
Well, the colonial La Republic de as Bureau, headed by Mokon Samuel, to work closely with the colonial La Republic de Cameroon authorities and most importantly, to respect the colonial La Republic de Cameroon laws and authorities above them. He goes on to say, on behalf of the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon Head of State and the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon Ministry of Youth Affairs and Civic Education, he goes on to say, I am tasking you to be respectful and work according to the laws governing the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon government, he said. Now, it is your responsibility to gather the youth so that you all can bring back peace in the northern zone. And we're asking, he already said there was peace. Which other piece is he talking about here?
Well, the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon Delegate of Youth Affairs and Civic Education, Odelia Free, called on the newly installed Executive Bureau to always come to her office when they need assistance to realize their projects. While in Bamenda, the national president of CNYC YCPDM, Fadimatu Usmanu, took part in the 2023 Open Business Day, which was celebrated at GBHS Bamendankwe. Together with the newly installed Executive Bureau for the Northern Zone, they distributed peace messages to students and called on them to avoid drug consumption, especially in the school environment. The interesting thing, however, is how the colonial government, by this statement, has once again contradicted themselves.
All right, moving on. Moja Moja reappears. Well, an overfed dog might be tempted in time to forget the position as a pet, to think of being equal in rights with the children of the owner. You can relate to that. Enablers helping La Republic de Cameroon to maim the people of southern Cameroon's Amazonia have been blinded by tips and crumbs to thinking that they are now considering themselves as probably La Republic de Cameroons. Now, they have forgotten who they are actually, talking about their roots and their culture. To maintain and secure the free flow of crumbs from Yaoundé, some of these good for nothing enablers have become overzealous in their endeavor to bring reality to their leaders, dictator, and presidents of La Republique du Cameroon.
While Moja Moja, an element of the La Republique du Cameroon elite force, the Rapid Intervention Battalion, with the French acronym BIR, and traditional ruler of Boissa village, Chief Echo John, has dropped another of his usual videos, this time not torturing nor killing Amazonian youth, but promising to eat Amazonians up. In the video, he claims to be hunting Amber fighters. The question is, where was he when the ADF planted explosives to disrupt the La Republique du Cameroon organized mountain race of February 2023 in his Boya town? Well, does it mean to him that the ADF are not Amazonian fighters?
While the ruler of Boissa village, Chief Ewume Echo John, known for torturing and killing the youth of the Federal Republic of Amazonia, has, in a video, promised to start eating Amazonians. Well, this is a man with a case filed against him in the courts, in the Boya military courts for crimes committed against the people of southern Cameroon's Amazonia. A group of lawyers, as one time reported by Undaunted, filed a complaint at the Colonial Secretary of State for National Defense against Chief Ewume Echo for torture and other atrocities against civilians.
Well, one of the lawyers perusing the case against Moja Moja, barrister Nico Amungwa Tanyi, made the statement captured on the Post newspaper. He equally stated that as lawyers, they firmly stand for the enforcement of the rule of law and against institutionalized crimes being perpetrated and going around freely by persons who are supposed to protect the citizens. The case filed against Chief Ewume Echo John, known as Moja Moja of Boissa Village, was transferred from the Colonial Secretary of State for National Defense in Yaoundé to the Boya Military Court.
Well, today, the same individual is on social media promising and threatening hell to the same group of people he's having charges and court against. If Moja Moja is still this vocal, it is simply evident that La Republic de Cameroon, through their court, is the support he is having to continue infecting a lot of pain And not just that, inflicting as well a lot of pain on the people of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. Now, this shows that La Republic du Cameroon's courts are probably not close to the courts. A lawless society. Anyways, we have a video here of Moja Moja saying that. Let's
My
see
name
what
no be
he
Moja Moja again. Amba, my name now na Kadu. Na me I be Kadu for Cameroon. For night I enter Munya, also na be dey Uka Muna run. Any Amba wey I catch na the choppy live. Inshallah na me Kadu I talk walai.
While still on Moja Moja's reappearance, in another video, he is seen keeping to his promise of taking down more Amazonians. And it's just unfortunate from a court case on this to back in the open, continuing more acts of human rights abuses.
Well, in a reaction to these sad recent happenings, Nelson Ochiba reacted by saying, human rights lawyer Abobala everywhere begging for La Republic du Cameroon appointment. He was mocked at La Republic du Cameroon National Dialogue. He wore green, red, yellow at Limbe Stadium. He said no genocide. Who knows, Biya might appoint him as a senator to represent himself since he wants La Republic to Cameroon kill all Ambazonians and reward him. He will tell you this video has nothing to do with human rights genocide. Now that's what Nelson Ochiba said.
Na Munya people that una rest. Na the people that come for Sunday. Na the time Sunday time disturb una. Yes. Na Amba this. No be Amba. Wait, no be Amba. No be Amba. Amba talk anyhow, he say anyhow. Sagat, una come out bush. Una come out bush. Amba, you talk anyhow, you say anyhow. If they no come out for bush, na so they'll go all the one after the other. Any Amba you dey for here, can't give me a gun. You go for TTR. If not be so, my new name now na the Kadu. Walai. Amba talk anyhow, Amba see anyhow. Inshallah.
Right, before we continue with the news for today, we did tell you in our introduction that we have Nijo here in the studio and would want him to react to these as well as tell us what's happening with the Midland zone draft coming up on Saturday. Nijo, if you're with us, what do you think about these Moja reports? Before you talk to us about Yes, before you talk to us about the Midland draft coming up, please tell us what you think about this sad report from Moja Moja first.
Um, Greetings, ladies, Onye and Star, and of course your technical team in the background, and permit me also to pay our traditional homage to our resistant and brave ARF on home front and all Ambazonians, your viewers who have tuned in this evening. I think my reaction to such atrocities is, as you rightly said, I think we need the experts of Nkongo Bala, barrister. Here he's a barrister who just won a prize. We would need, if we had media outlets in La République, we would really like to get some feedback from his organization and himself in person, where we have a country. I'm not sure what Moja Moja's status is. Is he a military or is he just a normal citizen? I don't know anything about him, but I think the barest to the best of my knowledge is that this is somebody who has severe, extreme mental issues, who is operating within a framework where there is no security, and he is probably armed by La République, and he's terrorizing the local population. I mean, look at these pictures say it all. I think the crowd there, the crowd in the background, you can see the fear. You can tell the fear in them, the uncertainty.
na munya pipo
Um,
dat una rest na di pipo dem come for Sunday.
it's unheard of, and I think that this is regrettable as far as the African unity, the AU is concerned. I think it's beyond La République. La République cannot govern the country, and I think the least that the AU should do, the African Unity or whatever it's called themselves, they need to intervene. I've just followed this through, and these are students that were pulled out of their university residence and shot dead and being displayed, and you can see the local population dreading their own lives. And if this is happening within the territory, let's call it La République for now, for the sake of this conversation, everybody with links to that La République's life is in danger. Because, as I said, this guy is definitely portraying signs of extreme mental illness. And if the weapon he's carrying is actually paid by a government using the taxpayers' money, I mean, what do I say? I think the least thing we can do is appeal for African Union to intervene. I mean, if the international community is involves the Europeans and the Western world, and they're far away, assuming that there are no embassies in La République to report issues like this and take drastic actions, I can only appeal, and I think this footage should be used by this interim government to make a case for international intervention in La République. Again, please excuse me. I don't want to talk about Ambazonia here because this is happening on our land, but under the pretext that we are part of a government, and that government is that of La République. So excuse me if I'm saying and using La République, but I think this is culturally an abomination. And as far as the educated world is concerned, this is somebody you can tell this gentleman is not well. I don't think you need an expert to assess him. And just to repeat what I said, if the weapon he's holding is actually funded by a government, which means taxpayers' money or some investment as in security, then everyone can tell the calamity that exists in such a setup called a government. And if there is anything to underline why Ambazonian doesn't fit in this society under La Republic, this is clear evidence. And I just pray that the Secretary of State of Communication and your director, Paddy, who are well-connected people, cannot let this end in the studio. I think we need to use this to let the rest of the world see what is going on in that place called La République du Cameroon. I'm not sure which African country, even in Sudan, where there was declared war and warring factions, when there was the genocide in Rwanda, which is Rwanda is now becoming an ideal country. I don't think during the genocide we had any issues like this. We had pictures that
Not at all.
portray
Not at
people.
all. But Nijo, I would want to
It's
cut you in
unbelievable.
there. I'm sure that you've made your points clear, as it were. But please, now that this is happening, it shows that we need to draft even stronger than ever before. And now the mid-land zone will host their interim government, the federal government of Amazonia. Now, so far, it's something that we have to take very seriously. So far, what are the plans?
Yeah,
Are
thank
they
you.
all ready? Are we ready for Saturday with what
Yeah,
we have on ground at the moment? Are there things we need to put into shape and perspective? Please put us through.
yes, thank you. This this appearance on your platform is to make a special appeal, and the appeal, I'm hoping that Ambazonians who are watching you now would vent their anger watching that video, those clips, and vent their anger and draft the federal government. And before we get into drafting the federal government, just as you've asked, my appearance here is to make a special appeal and to beg, and we're leaving the diaspora in this case, and we're going on home front. We know that people on home front watch your programs, and so the Department of Finance and Resource Mobilization is using this outreach, targeting purposely your viewers on home front. And I'm going to list the towns that I know that there are people watching you. And the appeal is for them. If anybody is watching this and has watched that clip and they have somebody from their village, somebody in their family, somebody they went to school with who is in the diaspora, and they have their number, the appeal from the Department of Finance and Resource Mobilization is for them to contact that Ambazonian in the diaspora and appeal for them to draft the federal government, particularly if they are from the Midlands. The Midland zone covers the counties Mezam, Manu, Momo, and the BLM. And these are the core towns of this Midlands region. So there's Mamfe, Akwaya, Oyomanjok, Opabayang, that's in Manu County. And we are appealing for all your viewers in Manu who have any relation with anybody in the diaspora, somebody that been to school with their family members, somebody from their tribe, somebody from the village that they know and have their number. The appeal is for them to call those persons, to contact those persons and say, please, we hear you're drafting the federal government of Ambazonia this Saturday. The Midlands is hosting, and we are appealing that you draft for the federal government. What is happening on the lands of Ambazonia is unacceptable, and we are appealing for all viewers on home front to call somebody in the diaspora and tell them to vent their anger and vote, and draft for the federal government. So we go to Momo County, there's Njikwa, Mbengwi, Achatugi, Batibo, Guzang, Widikum. Those are towns, those are settlements where there are people who view your programs day in and day out. The appeal is simple. Wherever you are, in the BLM, Alo, Menji, or in Mezam, Santa, Tuba, Bambali, Bamenda, Bali, Bafut, if you know somebody who you have and you have their number, or you know somebody who is in the diaspora, please call them and appeal to them to draft for the federal government for the Midlands on Saturday. This is a special appeal, and that is why I thought if I use this opportunity to come to your platform, because we know that there are so many Ambazonians who watch and follow your programs on home front. This information is in the diaspora, but we are making an appeal from home front. We need people from home front to phone people, to contact relations, friends, schoolmates who are in the diaspora to draft the federal government. We have made all different appeals using different platforms, but we want to emphasize that the Midlands draft, we want the people from home front to influence those people in the diaspora to draft for the federal government come Saturday.
All right, Niger, that's clear. I will definitely come back to you. Um, let's get this breaking news. We have this breaking news, and then we'll come back to you just right about
Thank
now
you.
in a jiffy.
Thank you.
And now on to the breaking news. Now on to the breaking news. This afternoon, New Thinking magazine, a platform where diverse and high-level opinions and perspective from leaders all around the world are shared, published President Samuel Ikome Sako's standpoint on the Russia-La Republic du Cameroon's unholy military alliance. But before we get into the details of the president's opinion, let's find out more about this magazine.
All right, a New Thinking magazine is about no one way of thinking. It is a nexus of expertise untethered from the 24 hours news cycle. It is a space where minds in a variety of fields can step away from their niches and take the long view. Here, diversity of thought is our singular strength. In a media climate of intense polarization, 280 character limits, and viral clips, we aim to publish the kind of thought that looks at the spaces between the paths forward that they represent. We are a venue that exists between long form journalism and social media, where experience takes the center stage.
Now that's about this platform. Now, why is it instrumental to have the interim government positions vis-a-vis the Russian Cameroon military accord on this magazine? Every week, New Thinking magazine brings their readership writings from the worlds of business, politics, entertainment, sustainability, and culture. On their site, they hope to generate the kind of pragmatic thinking and sharp observation that makes readers look twice and perhaps ponder another point of view. President Sacco is in to change the game, no doubt.
Well, indeed, the published article captioned Amazonia is the perfect place to counter Russian influence in Africa. Well, the report goes this way. It says the president of the unrecognized state fighting for freedom from Cameroon wants his homeland to help the West stop Putin's African adventures. Wars of liberations are brutal. They are one of the worst types of conflict. Combatants are not just fighting for an ideology or geopolitical goals, but for their homes and the lives of their families. Africa is the mother of all continents in terms of war of liberation. Conflicts on the continent have been horrific in regards to violence and the lack of respect for human life.
Well, it says my country of southern Cameroon, which we now call Ambazonia, is no different. Our liberation war after the United Nations voted in favor of our independence more than 60 years ago has been devastating for my people and has far reaching implications on the geopolitical chessboard all the way to Eastern Europe and beyond. It is no secret that Russia is actively expanding its influence on the African continent. The Central African Republic, CAR, borders Cameroon and is famous for Kremlin activity. The Wagner mercenary group run by Yevgeny Prigozhin, aka Putin's chef, also operates there. Rain activities are well documented in Donbass, Ukraine, but it is less well known that 5 years ago, the group likely murdered several Russian journalists who were looking into its activities in CAR.
Closer to home, the devastating war inflicted on us by the Cameroonian central government has been going on for years, and it has seriously impacted our freedom and economy. Although our security forces have put up a good fight to resist the Cameroon's government forces, the territory of southern Cameroon has been especially hard hit by military raids, arson, and economic collapse. Russia has backed acts of war on our people by a military agreement it signed with Yaoundé last year. Research by Amnesty International has revealed the devastating scale of destruction caused by the ongoing conflict in Cameroon's Anglophone regions.
Now, fighting between our forces and the Cameroonian military continues, with our people bearing the brunt of unlawful killings, kidnappings, and widespread destruction of houses and villages by Cameroon's armed forces. Many mass graves have been uncovered by international organizations investigating the 6-year-old conflict. President Paul Biya has ruled Cameroon from Yaoundé with an iron grip since 1982, and the country is listed as not free by Freedom House. His administration is considered rife with corruption, polling near the bottom of the corruption index worldwide at 142 out of 180 countries.
Well, before annexation in 1961, Southern Cameroon was a democracy. In 1953, the first democratic elections were organized in Southern Cameroon. In 1958, the opposition won the general elections and the incumbent prime minister lost. There was a peaceful transition of power, the first of its kind in British colonial Africa. We were among the few advanced pre-independence democracies in West Africa. Unfortunately, the Southern Cameroon's government and arts institution were dissolved and destroyed by Yaoundé. Under the resorted leadership of Southern Cameroon, known as their interim government, our nation has a glimmer of hope with democratic tradition worthy of respect in international diplomatic circles as we try to protect our heritage and livelihood. He goes on to say, I was elected leader of this government in exile in 2018 after claiming political asylum in the United States 8 years earlier. I stand for a peaceful resolution of the conflict through genuine dialogue and negotiation on equal terms.
He goes on to say our conflict provides an opportunity for the US and the West to build a viable relationship with the English speaking people of Southern Cameroon to live at the heart of the Gulf of Guinea, an area that is now open to new alliances and benefactors. If Washington is seeking to build a strong and reliable relationship with a friendly government in the strategic Gulf region, one that counters Russia's ambition to expand its access to warm water sports, oil, and natural resources, Southern Cameroon will be the most strategic U.S. ally in the sub-region. As China and Russia conduct numerous operations in Africa, especially in the sub-region, the U.S. cannot afford to be choosy when opportunities such as these present themselves. Countries like the United States should send high level personnel or special envoys to meet with victims and belligerents and, in coordination with other stakeholders, support internal efforts to investigate and document atrocities. For example, similar actions have been carried out by the United States in the past regarding Burma, South Sudan, Darfur, and other foreign conflicts, reported Human Rights Watch.
Russia established an embassy in Cameroon for the first time in 2019. Many Russian sponsored NGOs have increased their activities in the country and the sub region. It is obvious why Cameroons did not vote on the recent United Nations resolution demanding Russia leave Ukraine. 141 nations voted in favor of that demand on February 23rd, and Southern Cameroons would have also voted yes if we had a seat at the UN. Cameroon's vote highlights Yaoundé's relationship with Moscow. Suffice to say, the vassal state did not want to anger the teaser. The deal between Russia and Cameroon, signed on April 12, 2022, but revealed last week covers the sale of weapons and armored trucks, as well as intelligence gathering and training, wrote foreign policy.
Well, that deal may not come as a surprise to foreign policy observers because it is largely a revision of a 2015 agreement between Moscow and Yaoundé. Yet the timing of the pact amid Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine and reports of war crimes there as well as in CAR, Libya, and Mali has been criticized by Cameroonians. Only a genuine and inclusive dialogue, not a military solution, will end Cameroon's Anglophone conflict. The international community has a critical role to play in achieving this outcome, according to Human Rights Watch. It is time the United States became intimately involved in the conflict in Cameroon to stop Russia and our suffering. The United States should not make the mistakes it made elsewhere, such as in Burkina Faso, where it became too late to contain Russia's influence. Perhaps the West should come to terms with the fact that a failed union between Southern Cameroon and Yaoundé is not a fatal accident of history in light of Russia's growing influence in the country. Now is the time to rebuild America's alliances around the globe as the Ukraine conflict threatens to escalate out of control. Indeed, in the New World Order since Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year, it is in U.S. national interest for a stronger, healthier Southern Cameroon to balance the central government in Yaoundé. Southern Cameroons and the people cherish democracy and are committed to helping in this effort.
Well, that was quite remarkable. Now let's hear from Niger. Now, ahead of Saturday's federal draft, how do you feel listening to these from a leader who is unwavering with his opinion?
Right, say that again. A leader who?
A leader who is unwavering
Yeah. Um,
with his opinion.
Opinion, right. That would be a very difficult leader to work with. I'm not sure who you're referring to here, but we have a leader. The Ambazonian leaders are very down to earth people. They listen, they're flexible, and they're understandable, and they know that you can working with a team.
Please let me bring you in there, Nijo. Please, let me bring you in that we are talking about President Samuel Sarko's foreign policy. Now, he did had this interview with a magazine called New Thinking Magazine, and so we read what his response was. So all we read here is President Sarko's response. So that's
Right.
what I'm asking. With all of what we've read here, I'm sure you were listening. We're asking what you think. Saturday's draft is around the corner, and we have a leader who is
Resilient.
yes, who is resilient and who is steadfast. I think we are asking,
Yep.
what do you think, and connecting it to Saturday's draft and why people
Thank you.
must have to draft on Saturday.
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you. That's a determination. We have somebody who is very determined. And let me just start back why I made the appeal for your viewers on Homefront, and then I can come back to your question. When we were changing the format of the draft, which I've come to explain on your platform a number of times, it got to a point where the majority of Ambazonians in the diaspora understood it to mean that it was just the executive to draft. So this message of requesting Ambazonians on home front to appeal to those they know in the diaspora is to demystify the fact that only the leaders are drafting, only the county or LGA leaders are meant to draft. No, no, we are making a special appeal for all Ambazonians, everybody. And when we started drafting in 2020, there were so many people who got involved, but unfortunately, as we've explained many times, they weren't convinced by the actions that resulted in home front from their drafts, and some of them withdrew. So we are now changed the format, and we are making this special appeal. We are begging on Ambazonians to give this new approach a chance. Come and draft the federal government and put them to the test. Give them an opportunity that you can assess them. So this is one of the appeals that we're making to say it is not just for the leaders, it's not just for the Ambazonians in the diaspora, it's for everybody, every Ambazonian. And for those who had stood on the wall, please give your federal government a chance. Come in and draft them on Saturday, particularly those of Midlands. But the appeal is for every Ambazonian from the Atlantic, Savannah, and Midlands, everywhere, the world over. Come and draft. If you have not registered with your LGA, please just call ABC or call anybody that you have known or you have their number in the diaspora, and they will link you to the Department of Resource Mobilization or to the National Treasury, and you can make your payments. And we appreciate ABC. You're advertising the payment platforms on your platform, and so they can get those numbers and the details as the screen down on your monitor. So coming back to your linking, this demystifying that is all Ambazonians to draft the federal government, to your question, this is President, this is a leader who is determined, very focused on delivering Ambazonia to Ambazonians. This federal draft is an opportunity for Ambazonians to give this federal government and step back. This is March, and we're saying if you can draft $1,000 to this government, come October, November, December, you can stand out and ask for results. You'll be convinced that this is a government you can trust. This is an opportunity for you to put your government to test, put your leaders to test, and we cannot appeal more. This is beyond an appeal. We're actually on our knees and saying, look, we know many people have been discouraged with supporting this event, supporting the draft, but we're making a special appeal to say we have changed the format, we've turned the table around, we're going to do things differently, and we'll expect the different results. You would not be disappointed. And the first thing, please give this government an opportunity to be assessed. And come October, November, December, you would not be disappointed. But if you have something to blame, if you're looking to blame somebody, give us a chance. Give us a chance. Draft your federal government come Saturday, and you will not be disappointed. We were in Savannah last month in February. All of the pledges have not come in. We are making an appeal to those who pledged to please make your payments. And for those for Midlands, we would rather you pay cash upfront. But if you've got the details and you started paying in the Savannah and you now have a balance, please attempt to pay all of the balance now. And for those who did not start, please start by making a payment. $500, $200, $300. We would prefer cash upfront payment than pledges. So again, the federal draft is $1,000 for every Ambazonian who is an adult. But if you are a pensioner and you want to draft the federal government, any amount that is affordable for you is highly, highly appreciated and welcome, as long as it is cash payment. You pay it upfront, and we, of course, in a meeting yesterday, there were questions about certificates, issuing certificates. Yes, anybody, I can declare here, anybody who drafts the federal government and would request the draft certificate, that will be issued as normal. We would issue you certificates if you need your certificate for drafting the federal government. I hope this answers some of the questions, some of your questions. But again, we are always ready. Anytime, anything you are not sure of, please, you can always contact us either through ABC or directly, and we can always explain things while we're doing what we're doing the way we're doing it. Thank you, Lady Onye. I hope that links clarifies the position of the federal government and the trust we have in the leadership.
Clearly, clearly, you've put us through this for now. So I think this just had to sit where others are sitting already in our subconscious mind. So we would keep talking, would keep talking till we get to where we want to get to and achieve what we want to achieve. Star, you have a question?
Oh, sure. So
Absolutely.
we are made to understand that there was a county tour, and based on the feedback from the counties, what are your expectations for this Saturday's draft?
Yeah, we toured, the government toured for the 4 counties of Midlands, so Manu, Momo, Mezam, and the BLM. And of course, the results of the tour is the awareness is now been more it's more people are aware of what the government intends to do. And of course, one of the strategies we also adopted is to get people in the diaspora to contact people in the home front to contact everyone that they have their details in the diaspora so they can draft the federal government. That was one of the achievements from the visiting the various counties. But one of the great achievements was the target figures from all the counties. We now anticipating Manu is going to contribute a greater amount than they had done in October. Not just Manu, all the counties that we visited, Mezam, Momo, and the BLM, all these counties have stepped up the amount that they drafted in October for the federal government. So we're anticipating that the target we had set at $350,000 by the end of Saturday, we should beyond half of that. And remember, we are going to build on the success we had at the Savannah and move that on to Midlands. And I'm looking forward to coming back to your platform next week sometime, if you grant me permission to come and of course share the figures with you. But we are very optimistic that by the end of the first round, which will be in April when we visit the Atlantic, when the Atlantic zone host, we would have met the target, and if not, exceed the target that we had at the start of this journey. And of course, I'll be here to share with you, ladies. So you can take my word on it.
All right. From your expectations, it goes a long way to show that the theme for this year, acceleration, it really goes a long way to show that it is being manifested in Amazonia. And that's really like a very, very positive outlook for the drafts for Saturday. Onye.
All right. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Nijo. Wouldn't know if you want to say anything else because for today, I think that we are done. But just in case you have your final words, you can give you a
Yeah,
few
final
minutes
word,
to that.
Lady Onye and Star is please, please, if you can replay this news bulletin for our viewers on home front over and over and make this special appeal that we have changed the way the federal government was drafted. It's not just the leaders in the diaspora, every Amazonian in the home front, in the diaspora. But the special appeal we're making is if you are in the home front and know what is going on. I don't want to go into the senator elections. I don't want to go into what Moja Moja is doing. But if you have some anger, some disappointment in you, call somebody in the diaspora whose number you have, who might not be drafting the federal government, and remind them, tell them that you are requesting that they draft the federal government. That's my special appeal to all your viewers, Amazonian viewers tonight. And I've listed all those towns. Wherever you're watching ABC tonight, please make a special case. Call somebody, your ex-schoolmate, your village friend, somebody you knew somewhere, you had worked with them, and they're in the diaspora. Call them, make a special appeal for them to draft the federal government come Saturday if they're in the Midlands. Otherwise, if they're in the Atlantic, Next month, April, they'll be hosting. I hope that we will
Okay.
get a significant input result from ABC publicizing this and stressing. And of course, we will share the figures with you come next week. Thank you for the opportunity to come and
Yes,
speak to your
please.
viewers tonight.
All right. Thank you so much, Nijo. We appreciate.
Thank you.
All right, viewers, we have more reports coming, but that's after the break. Stay with us.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
Reports reaching Undaunted says 4 suspects have been arrested after attack on transport buses along the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon Douala Yaoundé Road. Barely few hours after the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon stage managed the CPDM senatorial elections on Sunday, March 12th, Undaunted learned that some men of the underworld hiding by the roadside used stones to attack and destroyed windshields of passing transport buses around the La Republic du Cameroon colonial town of Edi in their Sanaga Maritime Division of the Littoral Region. The attackers destroyed the windshields of buses, wounding several passengers.
Well, the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon Transport Minister Jean Massina Ngale Bibehe in a release said who passengers and attacked personal cars too. Quoting, she says several buses from road transport companies, personal cars, and trucks suffered the violence of this horde of criminals. The Colonial La Republic du Cameroon's Minister of Transport firmly condemns this act and reassures road users that urgent measures have already been taken under the coordination of the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon Governor of the Littoral Region to restore serenity on this busy highway, track and punish as several as the law provides their perpetrators.
The highway attacks in the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon littoral region comes barely few months after a wave of open vandalism seized the city of Douala, where a group of vandals called Les Macrobes used machetes to attack and rob people in broad daylight. The Colonial La Republic du Cameroon administration, however, managed to contain them. At press conference in Douala on Monday, March 13th, the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon governor said law enforcement officers are still investigating the attack, adding that a mixed police gendarme patrol team is ensuring the highway is safe for travelers. The ongoing war in Amazonia has that stated from a genuine the ongoing war in Amazonia that started from a genuine fight for freedom has given a lot of different groups with ill intentions, yes, skills, and an open ground to do as they please at the detriment of the poor civilians. Well, it is unfortunate, but sometimes the consolation in these set of people is that they get what they deserve.
Also, the Liberation War has not just done that, but also it has come with a new normal with innocent young ones being targeted and killed by the La Republic du Cameroon military deployed to southern Cameroon's Amazonia. The colonial La Republic du Cameroon military, whenever they receive a blow from the Amazonian Restoration Forces, have just one thing to do, and that vents their frustration to the innocent and harmless young Amazonians on their way back.
Well, inasmuch as they are different groups away from the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon soldiers involved in the war in southern Cameroon's Amazonia, that one can say that those always displayed might be one of the groups on the ground. But no, those that meet the military prowess of the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon military forces on the ground are the innocent Amazonian population. A group of young boys has been killed in Chang village in Manfe and tagged by La Republic du Cameroon colonial forces. How can they remove youths from their homes, slaughter them, and tag them Amazonian fighters?
The unfortunate incident, a group of young boys were killed yesterday, March 14th, 2023 in Nchang village, a locality in Manu County of the Atlantic Zone. These boys were killed by La Republic du Cameroon military men and tagged Ambazonian fighters. Well, this is not strange coming from the colonial thugs of Yaoundé because they have track records for killing innocent people in Cameroons and then tag them to be fighters. The lifeless bodies of these young, vibrant victims of the colonial La Republic du Cameroon military excesses in Amazonia were displayed at a major junction of Nchang village. This is a way the colonial um, military have adopted by La Republic to prove to whosoever that they are doing well in their confrontations with the Amazonian restoration forces.
The colonial La Republic du Cameroon military is strong in displaying the corpses of young innocent Amazonian bodies that they killed and not making public members of their elements sent to the land by the Amazonian Restoration Forces. While the same act was once carried out by the colonial La Republic du Cameroon forces in Mbengi, coming back from a failed mission against the Amazonian Restoration Forces in Momu County, they rained bullets in disorder to the point of killing a woman in her farm, leaving her children motherless.
Meanwhile, La Vichy is still a thing in the Cameroons.
Well, the people of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia need not only total separation from La Republic du Cameroon to be able to have their heads out of water, in addition to the numerous mechanisms put in place by La Republic du Cameroon to cripple the economy of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia in artificial scarcity of petroleum products, that is petrol and diesel fuel. Many car owners in Ambazonia, precisely Bamenda, have parked their automobiles because of the absence of these products at the filling station. It is a strategy by La Republic du Cameroon to make life miserable for Ambazonians.
Well, the shortage of these petroleum products is only in the Amazonian side of the Cameroons. Filling stations in La Republic du Cameroon do not have these shortages. Smart business minds are now making a huge amount of money by buying from neighboring La Republic du Cameroon and selling to Amazonia in gallons at higher prices to the detriment of the poor masses. Why are there petroleum products in La Republic du Cameroon filling stations and not in those in Amazonia?
Well, the lack of fuel at the different filling stations in Bamenda is making life difficult for all. This is forcing some automobile owners to park as fuel is nowhere to be found. Tuesday, March 15, 2023, traffic was obstructed at the veterinary junction as automobile owners were struggling to get fuel from the African petroleum filling station located there.
While students, workers, and businesses have their fair share of the pain as they were obliged to spend about an hour on the spot because of the holdup and the caused by the dire pressure to secure fuel at the fueling station. And this was the only fueling station that had fuel as all stations ran short on fuel by Sunday, March 12, 2023, while African Petroleum was the first to be supplied that Tuesday morning, hence the crowd.
Well, the news that there is fuel at the African petroleum filling station spread like wildfire. All in desperation flooded the area from all four corners of the town of Bamenda for either petrol or diesel fuel. The legislation was so high that parents paid no attention to the fact that their children were running late for school. All their focus was to press hard and get some liters of fuel.
Undaunted caught with this vehicle owner who regretted the fact that in this era of technological advancement, people could still be suffering so much. He says, "This is shameful for me to be experiencing this at my age of service in this world. See me here with a gallon in my hand to buy fuel to go and pour in my car. I run short of fuel 3 days ago and couldn't drive myself here because the tank of my car was empty. What a failed government. If the authorities of this country, Cameroon, still have a bit of conscience left, let them all resign. In the 21st century, people are being reduced to this type of misery. It is indeed shameful," he said.
Well, this is what this man who voted for anonymity lamented. He says, many have no option but to embrace the roadside fuel from neighboring Nigeria. With the high demand for roadside fuel from Nigeria and the inability of filling stations to satisfy users, the price per liter of roadside fuel has been raised to 1,000 francs CFA.
Now, the Consulate General of Colonial La Republic du Cameroon to Nigeria, His Excellency Bessie Manga Elizabeth, has urged Southern Cameroonian denizens living in Nigeria to stop using the Lagos state as a means of transit to Europe. She was speaking during the interview on the program The Inside on Equinox Television on March 13th, 2023. She says Lagos is not a town to Europe. Most Cameroonians come here to work so they can have money to go through the north to get to Europe. Our first headache here is those Cameroonians who come with the intention of transiting to Europe, she explained.
She noted that most of the southern Cameroonians get into problem with immigration authorities and the police. Now, according to her, she says most of the time we are being called up by the police to come and identify our southern Cameroonian brothers for repatriation back to the war-torn Ambazonia. Most times they are overwhelmed by the number of southern Cameroonians that come in as they flee the war. She says it is not within their mandate to carry out repatriation, but due to some humanitarian reasons. They have to ensure that some persons are repatriated to the wearing southern Cameroons.
Well, sometimes, she says, the consular service at the prison, for example, those that go and commit offenses are being held by the police. The consulate provides legal advice and sometimes even gets to the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon's Ministry of External Relations to contact their families back in the southern Cameroons. She urged Southern Cameroonians to respect the legal laws and provisions of Nigeria and any other country they move to. She advised they get all their legal documents and papers before moving into another country in order to make their stay favorable.
All right, and moving on, the military option adopted by the neighboring La Republic to Cameroon in Ambazonia is too harsh for many to withstand. Being unable to stand the violence currently going on in southern Cameroon, were used and killed. The young and the old raped other colonial La Republic to Cameroon. Military have decided to flee the country for refuge elsewhere rather. One of the countries of choice for such a trip is the United States of America. Well, BBC has reported that many migrants are stranded in the Caribbean islands as they run short of money and legal papers en route to the USA via Mexico. Had it been all is well and fine with the regime of President Paul Biya, many couldn't have been on the run. The question is, why will a citizen prefer to die in an unknown land than in his nation of birth?
Well, this goes a long way to tell the heights of evil perpetrated against them in their own land. Over 600 Cameroonian migrants, with many being Ambazonians, are reported to be stranded in the Caribbean islands, BBC report. Embarking on desperate journeys to the US through Mexico to seek asylum, they are trapped by circumstances related to limited finances and legal papers in the Caribbean.
These Amazonians are in deplorable conditions as hopes of going to the US are almost dashed and fears of repatriation loom over their heads. A majority of them are fleeing the armed conflicts in Amazonia that has killed more than 6,000, 45,000 people. Hundreds of thousands more have even been forced from their homes since violence broke out in 2017 between Colonial La Republic to Cameroon security forces and the Ambazonian who are facing discrimination from La Republic to Cameroon.
While most of the migrants who now find themselves in the wrong destination say Antigua or Barbados was not their destination, as they had expected to spend just a few days there before being ferried to South America, from where they hoped to make it to the United States through Mexico. They are pleading with authorities not to send them to Cameroon as they risk being persecuted if they returned. A massive influx of Cameroonian refugees, reports say, has created a complicated situation for Antigua and Barbuda, which is more used to welcoming tourists than refugees.
While the government previously declared his intention to repatriate the refugees, it has been announced a U-turn on humanitarian grounds. Information Minister Melford Nicholas said a skills audit will be carried out on the migrants to determine the benefits of allowing them to stay. As the economy continues to expand, we are going to need additional skills, he told a press conference. He says, we will give them accommodation and find a way to give them legal status here.
How interesting. He added that the government hoped islanders would embrace and have an open heart to the Africans. However, the government of Antigua and Barbados has banned incoming flights from Central Africa to prevent the influx of more refugees. A few hundred miles away in Trinidad, 5 Cameroonians awaiting repatriation were granted an 11th-hour court injunction on 16 February, preventing the move after intervention UN Refugee Agency UNHCR.
The refugees, according to reports, shared stories of arbitrary arrest, torture, and death threats in their homeland. What started as peaceful protests in October 2016 by professionals protesting about discrimination against English-speaking Cameroonians escalated into a bloody conflict when La Republique du Cameroon government's military forces cracked down.
All right, now on to the next report. Interestingly, there has been a budding talent that Ambazonia hopes to boast of as soon as we arrive, Boya. His name, Our Blaze Chi, a 20-year-old, an Ambazonian war victim student from Pinyin in Santa local government area, has stunned neighboring La Republic of Cameroon with another mind-blowing prototype innovation, an open bridge he designed. He first displayed his latest invention on March 10th in Douala as he represented his school at this year's Open Door Day for Technical Colleges in La Republique du Cameroon.
Well, the bridge, which does not yet exist anywhere in La Republique du Cameroon, is a flexible, electric-powered structure that can be shifted to the side or opened up to allow large ships to pass where they cannot navigate beneath the bridge. Our, who now lives in water due to armed conflicts, said the bridge can also be useful for security purposes, where authorities want to restrict crossings without necessarily blocking the bridge.
He says, what I made here is an electronic bridge that a country having it always decides when should go through or not. Also, when a heavy ship wants to cross to another side, they open it for the ship to pass freely, he said. The open bridge serves many purposes, not only for some heavy ships to cross, but especially in times of emergency, in times of some criminal act in the city or country. It can be cut off automatically to arrest the offenders and also to stop a problem from one side of the town from affecting the other side. His inspiration for the innovation came from within. The 20-year-old tech genius said he realized there was a problem that needed to be solved when he observed how bridges in La Republique du Cameroon were constructed. Notably, La Republique du Cameroon's longest bridges across River Wuri in Douala. He says, I have studied the Bonaberry Bridge that links the other side of the town Douala and discovered that no ship can pass under it anymore because it is too low. But this would have been a problem if it this wouldn't have been a problem if it was this type of bridge, he said.
The open bridge is the latest of several innovations our Blaze has made in the past. His creativity started at a very tender age, but first gained nationwide popularity in 2019 after he displayed prototype toys he had made from cardboards and cartons. In 2020, he upgraded his product and began using waste metals to produce movable bulldozers, airplanes, excavators, and toy cars.
Well, in 2021, he made an automatic trash can that opens once a person comes close to it. He has also made several other products and organizations to train his schoolmates. Just a few years back, our education was halted by the Amazonian War of the Independence, sadly. This armed conflict that has forcefully displaced him and his family from Bamenda to Douala.
However, his creative works earned him a scholarship that helped him bounce back. He continued his education at Atlanta Comprehensive High School, a bilingual technical college in Bonabiri, Douala, where he studied industrial fabrication.
While the Form 5 student is always on top of the class when it comes to practicals, the native of Pinyin, a small village in Santa local government area, hopes to become a great engineer one day. In 2021, he opened a small factory called Cheese Style where he makes toy cars and trains other youngsters who are interested in his work. Well, onto this interesting report, the Insalai. Nemesis catches up with the Insalais. Insalai convicted of 2.5 million US dollars pandemic fraud. This is what has been rocking the media space for hours on ending. And Amazonians are kind of jubilating because the Insalais have been torn to the flesh. In details, Alexandria Va, a federal jury convicted the Ashburn woman, Southern Cameroonian born, on charges of conspiracy, bank fraud, and money laundering. This information was officially announced and published on the U.S. Justice Department website on March 6, 2023. According to court records and evidences presented at trial, Rosemary Insalai, 47, and her husband fraudulently obtained two Paycheck Protection Program (PPP) loans. This is the point where it gets interesting. Tell us more, please.
Yeah, it's actually very scandalous, I would say. The La Republic du Cameroon mentality pays off negatively in the USA this time. 99 days for the thief, 1 day for the owner, is what they say. Now, just so you may understand clearly, the PPP was a program instituted by the US Congress to help businesses affected by the coronavirus pandemic continue to pay salaries or wages to their employees. And Salai carried out the scheme in connection with two of her husband's businesses by creating fraudulent payroll documentation for each business and then submitting that documentation in support of the PPP loan applications. The fraudulent documentation represented that her husband's businesses had dozens of employees with over $17 million of annual payroll in 2019, when in fact they had few, if any, employees at all. So, in total, Ntala and her husband fraudulently obtained approximately $2.5 million in loan proceeds, and they dealt these funds on items unrelated to any legitimate PPP related expenses. So, these items included the down payment on a 7,000 square foot home in Leesburg. Zalai's husband pleaded guilty to the scheme in 2021.
Well, Nsala faces a maximum penalty of 30 years in prison when sentenced on July 19th. Actual sentences for federal crimes are typically less than the maximum penalties. A federal or district court judge will determine any sentence after taking into account the U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. Jessica D. Aber, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Karim Carter, IRS Criminal Investigations Acting Special Agent, in charge of the Washington, D.C. field office, Maureen R. Dixon, Special Agent in charge of the Office of Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, Michael Sarah, acting special agent in charge of the Office of Inspector General for the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation (FDIC), and Amalika McCall Bradwaite, Eastern Region Special Agent in charge for the Small Business Administration, Office of Inspector General (SBA) OIG, made the announcement after U.S. District Judge Rosie D. Alston Jr. accepted the verdict.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Jordan M. Harvey and David A. Peters are prosecuting the case. A copy of this press release is located on the website of the U.S. Office for the Eastern District of Virginia. Related court documents and information are located on the website of the District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia or on Pacer by searching for case number 121 CR234. Now, I can tell you the Insellas are in limbo. So, what do you think?
That's a word that describes the moment at the time. Well, before we go a step further, let me bring to our attention a necessary recap because it is worthy to highlight that Christopher Insalai, the late father of deemed lawyer Emmanuel Insalai, who shuttles regularly between the US and Yaoundé for reasons not known to us yet, embezzled billions of francs from the colonial regime of La Republique du Cameroon in the same fashion before his passing. Reports have it that at one time, his people, the people of Dakiri in Bouy County, almost stoned him to death for attempting to buy and rig elections in favor of BS CPDM. Evidence of Emmanuel Insalai's fraud is this video interview with the CRTV on 30th of November last year. Let's take a look.
First of all, I'm very happy. It's a first step, and it's a necessary step, and it's one of many steps. We've always said that you cannot do certain things and believe that because you're living far away in the United States and the victims and the people you hurt and harm and kill and order their kidnappings are 10,000 kilometers away in Cameroon, that means you would go free. It's a process we began a few years ago, filing criminal complaints with the FBI, filing criminal complaints with other law enforcement agencies. They've bidded and they took their time investigating, corroborating our information, working with us to authenticate the evidence, sending actually special agents here in Cameroon to check on certain local conditions. And this is the results of these investigations. It's the first of many to come as we continue our work and collaboration with various USA federal law enforcement agencies investigating the separatist leaders, which we believe are terrorists, which we have termed terrorists in the United States, and which we're seeking to bring to justice. Most of our complaints we filed, including the very recent 3 arrests that happened yesterday, we pointed out to the law enforcement agencies that there are restrictions in the penal code that says you cannot conspire, which means agree with somebody, whether they're in the United States or abroad, to harm, destroy the property, kidnap, or commit a violent crime in another country or anywhere in the world. If you do that, you're in violation of a USA legal code. So even just the conspiracy, you cannot raise funds for such activities to take place, which is the financing of violent crimes or terrorism. So these are some of the laws that the 3 separatist terrorists who were arrested and indicted yesterday were charged with, exactly as we filed the complaints with the Attorney General of several USA law enforcement agencies. So there are a lot of books in the US that need to be applied. They're starting to be applied. And when they would be completely applied, we can tell you we have over 100 different criminal complaints filed against all major separatist leaders. And we're pushing the files and doing the legal workup in order that they are also arrested, indicted, and brought to justice for their crimes against Cameroon, against innocent citizens, against our military just doing their job to protect civilians, and basically face the penalties for being terrorists. Referring to those they've been collaborating with locally, it's not necessary for them to be part of the case in the United States. But we hope that the Cameroon law enforcement authorities will seek them out, flush them out, and arrest them. Our roles as lawyers in the United States, as well as lawyers in Cameroon, is for now to focus on bringing the separatists, not just in the United States, they're also in Europe, in Norway, in Hong Kong, to file those criminal complaints and bring them to justice, knowing that our excellent administration, local forces, local law enforcement investigators can handle the local terrorists here, the local armed groups here. There are over literally hundreds of major Ambazonian financiers, supporters, and activists. Of course, it's unrealistic to say we're going to get several hundred arrested, but our goal is to get all the major leaders, all the major financiers, all the major activists, and there are over 100 arrested and indicted, and go to prison. The crimes they have committed, lest we forget, is totally abominable and unforgivable. They have caused, financed, planned, directed, and led to thousands of innocent of our brothers and sisters in the Anglophone regions die. They have left thousands of widows, hundreds and thousands of kids without parents. They've caused a huge humanitarian crisis. They have to face justice. And we will not relent till all of them, the major ones, are imprisoned in their host countries, not just in the United States, but worldwide.
All right, now I'm sure you saw that video for yourself. Well, first and foremost, the US has not in any way classified the Ambazonian Liberation Movement as a terrorist movement or any of its leaders as a terrorist. The president is a US citizen who lives and operates in the US very freely, unabated. Well, what Emmanuel Insalai is not telling his vulnerable audience is that the case he filed against Chris Anu in 2019 and with the proactive, diligent intervention of the president and his team was kicked out of the courts.
Well, I guess Emmanuel is trying to fabricate reports to show what done with the assignment he claimed to be doing for the colonizers. Like father, like son, you can say, and Salah is in the same martial style of theft, embezzlement, and fraud, is currently swindling huge sums of money from the Yaoundé region with a promise to prosecute Amazonian freedom fighters resident in the USA. Well, we must hasten to say that he claims in the video you just watched can be rightfully classified as misinformation and first class fraud. Perhaps, as a good lawyer, he should try to defend Rose, Maria, and Salai out of this particular situation.
While some say Rosemary Insalai, convicted, could be nemesis catching up with the Insalai. We will bring you details as the story unfolds, but as it stands, we can say with no fear that the Insalai leakage has an inseparable link with Ford. And now, news on African reports.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
All right, now in Africa and Nigeria. In a statement released on Thursday by Nigerian youths under the platform of Youth Alive Foundation, they have asked the country's electoral body, Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), to ensure free, fair, and credible polls on Saturday during the governorship and state assembly elections. The group lamented the socio-economic challenges being faced by youths in the country and warned INEC not to repeat the errors they showed during the conduct of the February 25th presidential elections on Saturday to prevent a nationwide revolt.
Well, the statement reads, we have failed the youth as a nation. There is a high level of youth poverty and unemployment. Youths have been excluded in decisions affecting them, and they are frustrated with the status quo and seeking for change as evidenced by the NSAS protests that took place in 2020. This has led to an awakening consciousness and knowledge of the strength of their collective power about the significance of their numbers. There is no stopping them now in participating in democratic processes. These moral army seeking social justice reforms and a better Nigeria registered in large numbers to vote because they were assured that their vote would count and that their voices would be heard. They have demonstrated that they can be organized for citizen action and change the face of democracy in Nigeria. The establishment and government agencies should read the room. It is no longer business as usual. The recent presidential and National Assembly elections that were conducted without transparency, accountability by INEC, and in non-compliance to their own guidelines are tantamount to pulling their lion's tail.
And they noted by multiple stakeholders, groups, and observers, INEC bungled the elections process, and instead of addressing these issues, they continued the process like nothing happened, they said. There have been no explanations or actions taken against INEC officials who have been accused of complicity, intimidation, and voter suppression during the elections. Challenges by party agents were ignored, and INEC hurriedly proceeded with results collations. No clarity or specificity on the alleged technical glitch that prevented Beaver's upload, and calls from far and wide to review the elections process and results were largely ignored. The only response from INEC to those aggrieved was that they should go to court. Three political parties have gone to court as advised, and the court has issued the ex parte order for INEC to allow the parties to inspect all election materials. There is confusion about the numbers that were collated by INEC for the declaration of the presidential results, which is now inconsistent with the numbers from the polling unit later uploaded on IREV.
In their detailed statement, they said there are also clear modification and tampering of many uploaded from the EC8A and other result sheets INEC used to record votes. Transparency and explanations are required from INEC on these issues to ensure peace is sustained in there. We are on the edge of a precipice, and the only restraint has been the belief and hope of youth that they will get justice. Now, that's what they said. INEC, by their inaction, commission, or omission, is inciting the populace and baiting youths, which can trigger anarchy and the revolt. And as they prepare for the gubernatorial and state house of assembly election, INEC needs to ensure that they adhere to their own guidelines and the Electoral Act of 2022. Now, INEC officials need to conduct their activities in line with the guidelines to ensure the elections are seen as credible and legitimate. If INEC does not conduct the upcoming elections transparently, while from reports we hear it could trigger a youth revolution, which could result in anarchy on a level that Nigeria has never seen before, and probably the world at large. Well, they are representing a coalition of youth-focused organizations, civil society organizations, and youth groups are urging INEC to uphold the rule of law and conduct a free, fair, and credible gubernatorial and House of Assembly elections.
Well, the statement also added that INEC should not tax the patience of the youth or provoke the youth into revolt. Peace isn't merely the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. They ended this with a quote from President James Marshall. Well, while this Nigerian youth organization, Youth Alive Foundation, has taken out the time to write this lengthy statement to INEC, others do not believe they should bank on INEC's transparency. Two Nigerian tech experts have launched an online platform called Collate to collate and broadcast in real time the results of governorship elections across Nigeria.
Well, Mr. Owoye and also Omomiso say the platform will use crowdsourced data from Nigerians across the over 176,000 polling units in the country. The results will then be readily available to viewers across the world. Now, to achieve this, at least one electorate from all 176,846 polling units across Nigeria is required to pre-register on the platform before Saturday and upload election results at their polling units in real time, they said in a statement that is sent to Premium Times. The failure of the Electoral Commission INEC to upload in real time polling unit results of the presidential election has been mentioned by local and international observers as one of the flaws of the election.
While the owners of Collate hope to use the platform to address some of the concerns of Nigerians about INEC's election portal, IREV. Mr. Wonye told that, quote, while party agents contested elections results during INEC result announcement, nobody really had real-time evidence to present. There was nowhere visible that the results were all aggregated, so it became difficult to prove. It is obvious that the youth in Nigeria who make the nation what it really is have chosen to step up the seat on the fence. The electoral period in Nigeria have been really intense, even way before the election started, with the world watching and its youth rising up. Justice might just be served this time, which will in turn give hope to other African nations who hope for justice.
And other international stories, well, the Russian and Ukraine war has been raging on for 1 year and counting, and somehow it gets the world's attention. The Amazonian war has been on for 6 years and counting, with over 45,000 lives lost, and yet the world keeps a dead ear. Should we consider it a black race thing? Well, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a potential Republican presidential candidate, has said the ongoing war in Ukraine should not be a top priority for the United States. Well, according to him, he says while the U.S. has many vital national interests like securing our borders, addressing the crisis of readiness with our military, achieving energy security and independence, and checking the economic, cultural, and military power of the Chinese Communist Party, becoming further entangled in a territorial dispute between Ukraine and Russia is not one of them. Well, DeSantis said in a statement provided to Chucker Carlson on Fox News.
Well, as a member of Congress, DeSantis voted for several defense spending bills that provided U.S. military and intelligence support for Ukraine. In a related development, Poland could give Ukraine MiG-29 fighter jets in the coming 4 to 6 weeks. Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki said, suggesting that Kiev allies were moving closer to an agreement on the next step in their military support for the country. Poland has said it would be prepared to send Soviet designed MiG 29 jets to Ukraine as part of a coalition of countries. However, with Kyiv's allies taking a cautious approach to the transfer of fighter jets, it has been unclear how long such a process might take. Quote, that could happen in the coming 4 to 6 weeks. This is what Moraki told a news conference when asked how long it could be before Warsaw supplies the aircraft.
Well, last Thursday, Slovak Defense Minister Jaroslav Nad said his Polish counterpart had told him at a European Union meeting on the previous day that Warsaw would agree to a joint process to hand over MiG-29 jets to Ukraine. Nad said the time had come also for Slovakia to make a decision on whether or not to send jets to Ukraine. Meanwhile, 7 ships carrying 265,977 metric tons of grain and other agricultural products left Ukraine's Chernomorsk and the Odessa ports on Monday.
Well, the ships are destined for Spain, China, and the Netherlands and are carrying corn, sunflower meal, and sunflower oil. The Black Sea Grain Initiative, a deal brokered last July between Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, and the United Nations, eased Russia's naval blockade and saw 3 key Ukrainian ports reopen. So far, more than 700 ships from Ukrainian ports. Well, that's it for the international scene. And this is a breaking news that we brought to you. The missing person we brought to you earlier in the week called Diego Luis from Kupe Mwanenguba, who we told you left Boya for Yaoundé on the 2nd of February, but was kidnapped at Mvan.
Well, she is 23 years old, Diego Luis from Kupe Monanguba. Well, the sad news is that she's not just missing, but she's dead. Said to have been molested and killed in neighboring La Republic of Cameroon as she went to process her document to flee the country. She was said to have been killed even after paying a heavy ransom. Well, this is a sad development to how anyone at all should die. All right, and right after the break, Stessman will bring you the editorial.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
In our editorial of today, we take a look at Victory of the Silent Guns. What did we know as a people from the onset of the revolution, which is material to tomorrow? 1. We knew that the revolution would never secure the express backing and support by the political elite through appeals to their conscience nor by decrees of inconsequential threats. 2. We knew that the core of the elites and intellectual class would never recognize the interim government's leadership unless and until their loyalty to the French Cameroon's regime ceases to convey a legitimacy of political consequence or they were individually chosen to lead the revolution. 3. We knew that only by escalating the crisis to violence of a warfare dimension would French Cameroons acknowledge the existence of a conflict beyond domestic character. For we knew that French Cameroons would exhaust every earthly capabilities and power disposed to her political status and authority to fight the revolution in all battlefields. 5. We knew that our people serving the French Cameroons regime would inflict the heaviest material casualties on the revolution. 6. We knew that without any united political leadership and a well coordinated central military command, we would be our worst enemy in the battlefield. 7. We knew that if anyone amongst us come close and ambitious enough to break rank from the acceptable leadership structure seeking for power, it would precipitate chaotic survival competition charged along ethnic preference. 8. We knew that ignorance amongst our people was a driving force that had to be cultivated with political promises and hope, without feeding it with ambition for power. And if that became the case, consciously or by accident, ignorance would become a double edged sword, both loyal to the revolution and in bed with the enemy. 9. We knew that those joining the revolution from 2016 had shallow debt, porous understanding, impractical logic, wavering conviction, poor mastery, undisciplined character, unsacrificial spirit, and or doubted loyalty. But the willing and faithful amongst them needed just a little more time and inspiration to perform at the highest level of their supernatural potentials. 10. We knew that the throng of media support and activism would diminish on the persistence of threats, direct warnings, and implications. 11. We knew that not placing the revolution on a guaranteed path of success quickly enough would lead to the devastation of moral and destruction of confidence among the victim society. 12. We knew that once money becomes a focus or an active ingredient in the choice of action, there will never be enough in value and quantity to sustain the willingness and readiness in the most bloody battle engagements against the enemy. 13. We knew that the French Cameroons is willing to sacrifice the international image, conception, and reputation of her being a peaceful nation in order to preserve the one Cameroon illusion, if ever it became possible to survive otherwise. 14. We knew that there is no patron out there who would just jump to the opportunity of investment or possibility of securing natural resources in exchange for weapons without first studying our survival methods, degree of territorial control, chances of success, and the risk challenges involving geopolitical location, market access, and the interests of concerned international forces. 15. We knew that we're not going to enjoy a privileged global support, but that the international community shall not be hostile to our claims or our leadership, our adopted fighting methods and language, our culture, history, and our political identity. 16. We knew that we shall never make it past our grieving shoulders. If we begin drumming up support for ego, printing t-shirts for followers, taking pictures with white men to deceive the people, or mislead society with facts, ricocheting up tensions amongst ourselves, and sponsoring our fighters to kill one another. We knew that France, China, the Catholic Church, EU, and Francophonie would be ever willing and ready to pay the war bill of French Cameroons if only to keep us under any form of political control. Well, 18, we knew that Nigeria would be an impossible obstacle to overcome, but an accommodating monster to not threaten. 19, we knew that if the revolution fails to maintain momentum at the highest level, the rate of defection and desertion would create a threatening vulnerability within the fighting force. 20, we knew that there are parts of our society under strategic enemy control where the revolution may have to sacrifice twice its forces to recapture in a direct combat or to cause internal threat that would lead to some form of political compromise from the occupiers. 21, we knew that we shall start the fight with our grandparents and siblings, but may end it with our grandchildren and nation which may not recognize our sacrifices. 22, we knew that the revolution shall be the beginning of the end of the Cameroons as it's known and perceived internationally. But French Cameroons shall be more imparted by the change than the English-speaking Southern Cameroonians. 23, we knew that for the international community and global legal order to prosecute the regime for crimes against humanity or war crimes, they would first have to politically acknowledge the existence of the war and victimization of our leadership, fighters, and forces. 24, we knew that our traditional leaders are ready to eat from both sides of the political divide and embrace the possibility of any outcome. But they would coexist with safety and exhibit the corrupt tendency or material preference. 25, we knew that when we took off, it will be by the same small and inexperienced voices taking the greatest risks, but when we fully engage, it will be big titles, wealth, and old age competing for relevance. 26, we knew that as the revolution progresses to stability, picking up international accreditation, and surviving greater threat, the elites will reconstitute to take over, steal attention, and or challenge the political leadership. 27, we knew that the ordinary fighters would be exposed to threats of their ignorance, tribal influence, pockets of political ambition, charm of the enemy, hand of charity, and international instruments of caution. This vulnerability means that for command and control to be effective and resolute, the revolution leadership must take direct responsibility in the enlistment building, composition, discipline, survival, equipment, direction, and management of the fighters. Any aspect left to assumptions or third party would be compromise and betrayal. 28, we knew that as a matter of policy, strategy, and highest priority, French Cameroons shall depend on the assimilated members of our society for her most reckless use of force, aggressive attacks, inhumane actions, brutal offensives, and denial campaigns against the revolution and victims. 29, we knew that French Cameroons will seek to exploit and penetrate the revolution through weaker, vulnerable, and compromised elements in various ranks and competence. 30, we knew that only by creating a governing body or interim government shall French Cameroons fully engage the revolution's threat with the highest attention and political consequence. 31, we knew that with a united political leadership, we could force a quicker victory at the instance of an internationally sponsored, mediated settlement amidst the risk of cheap betrayal. 32, we knew that in divided fronts and diverse ranks, we stand the chance of surviving the traditional weapons at the disposal of the enemy and may even endure the war, but we shall be weakened each day, reduced on every confrontation, and place the revolution at the mercy of the people, few donors, few prominent fighters, and circumstance. 33, we knew that those who would betray the revolution or be left behind early in the adventure may rejoin to move the cause forward, but those that would join the enemy at some stage shall constitute the greatest threat to the revolution's survival. 34, we knew that at best the revolution would legitimize itself on the compromised disposition by the UK, the discretion by the Five Eyes, the human rights concerns by the civilized world, the complicity by the French, and the strategic patience of the Commonwealth. With that, we've come to the end of this very article. What did we know of the people before the revolution? As interesting as it gets, this is the end of our editorial for today. If you want more of such interesting articles, kindly visit our website at www.abcambertv.com for more. Subscribe, become a club member, and a part of this winning strategy. Final payment details on your screen. I am Star Smart reporting for Undaunted ABC Amber TV.
Right, and with that editorial, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a recap of our major stories.
Tonight, we looked at the colonial La Republic of Cameroon's governor Leila Frick talking on bringing back peace in the northern zone. Also, Moja Moja absent at the mountain race of hope but reappears. Tonight, also, 4 suspects arrested after attacks on transport buses in La Republic of Cameroon's Douala Yaoundé Road.
All right, tonight we told you that Nigerian masses choose to address INEC's involvement in the upcoming elections. La Republic du Cameroon's consulate in Nigeria urges Southern Cameroonians living in Nigeria to stop using Lagos as transit to Europe. Also tonight, young Ambazonian engineer Our Blaze designs open bridge in yet another mind-blowing invention. And that was it for tonight on Undaunted, bringing to the news Untold Stories. On behalf of my co-anchor Star Smart and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in.
We'll leave you with ABC Amber TV images. Good night and God bless you.